What's up, everybody? I'm Scott.
I'm Jason.
And welcome to Liquid Kernedge.
Welcome, Liquid Kernedge, everybody.
What's going on, buddy?
Hey, nothing much, man. I'm just really excited about the show today. As always, please, when you listen to us, share us on Facebook, share us on at Liquid Kernedge.
All of our social media. You're very active with that. You jumped right into that.
I did.
I thought you were going to have me say that, but you jumped right into having the fact you want people to share us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, all of that at Liquid Kernedge.
Some of the biggest and best episodes we've ever recorded. I've noticed that there's been a huge spike in people sharing the topic over to their friends and anyone on Facebook that they know. We'd love to spread the word. We are in about 38 states now and 10
12
countries.
in closing. 10 countries.
10 countries, yeah.
10 countries.
10 countries. Thanks, Taiwan. We also got France in there. We did a little bit of England, so we've got a lot of people.
It turns out the British folks, thanks for listening, loved our episode on fantasy or the draft we did way back when.
Yeah, 6 weeks ago we had like 30 people sign up to listen from Europe or from Great Britain, obviously because we do football over there. So
yeah, and obviously I think it was all in preparation of the big game this weekend with my Cardinals and your Rams playing at was it Twitterham Stadium?
Yeah, Twinker.
I don't want to butcher the name anymore. It's over in England as they're playing this weekend.
Exactly. Well, I had an interesting thing happen to me. One of my coworkers came back from a trip to Oregon, and she talked about how she saved a life. And I said, "You saved a life?" I'm thinking, like medical emergency, did CPR, saved someone's life. Turned out that she was driving over a bridge in Oregon, and there was a person who was standing on the edge or the railing of the bridge to jump.
Yeah, so it's a suicide.
A suicide, right.
Yeah.
And this person got out of her car and talked to this woman, tried to get her off of the ledge. In the meantime, while she's talking with this woman, a guy comes from another car, comes up behind the woman and pulls her off the ledge. So they saved her life. Wow. But it got me thinking because I thought to myself,
did they save a life or did they just prevent this from happening right there in front of them?
They prevented it from right there from happening.
Yeah.
And the reason why this came up to me is I asked, well, what would you have done if she'd actually jumped while you were talking to her? And she gave me this blank look in her eye like, I have no idea. It probably would have freaked me out. But I was inspired because she did a good thing. She did a very good thing, I think. For the most part, she does a good thing. And it got me thinking about morality and what are the right things to do in this world and what are the things that we do because the society says they're good versus what are things that are just intrinsically good
and that's
to do.
That's a very interesting question. That's actually a very good topic today because we all want to think we have the same moral fiber, but we all see this world differently. We all think and view our morals in very different ways and capacities. So what you might think is very moral, I might consider amoral and vice versa.
Right.
So that's a very interesting conversation to have.
Well, and I think it started for me is with the question, is there a universal moral code where everyone within their fiber knows that these things are the right things to do in any society that you go to or any city in the United States? Is there a moral code that says this is the right thing to do?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think we want to believe that there's a right way to do, and that's why we have religion and people follow their religions very closely because they look toward their whether it be the Bible, the Quran, the Torah for that guidance for morals and what have you. But I go back to every time and think that it's just we all think about things differently. We all view things differently,
Yeah.
And we all would handle that situation differently. How would you handle that situation? Let's go back to that for a second. Our friend stops on this bridge, sees someone about to jump off. If you were in her position, what do you think you would do?
See, and this is where I have a tough time because while I would like to think that the right thing to do would be to get out of the car and help this person, I have always been a live and let live type of philosophy or live and let die.
So you might not necessarily stop, even get out of the car.
I'm worried that my dilemma inside of me might have led me to
a different
keep driving or to call
somebody.
Call someone.
At least your conscience is clear
help.
that you called someone hoping that they're there in time.
No, I shouldn't say that because one time I was driving down the road and I was driving next to the Hilltop Inn, coming down El Travator Hill, and I'm sorry, it was the Travel Lodge as you come down the hill, and an old woman had fallen off of the sidewalk in the parking lot. From a walker, she had misstepped and she fell. And Noreen and I stopped the car, and I did get out to help her.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why that was intrinsically something that I thought to do.
It's the right thing to do. If you see a little old lady fall on a walker on the sidewalk, if you can help, you help.
Yeah.
I mean, that's there. For as many things as we question about morality or what's good and what's wrong, there are certain things you just have to do. You help someone if you see something like that happen. If you can pull over real quick and help her up, that's just what you do.
Well, and in the last couple of months with all the tragedies in Houston and Miami and Puerto Rico, what do we see but just average people going and trying to help other people?
Yeah.
Like the people that would get in their boats and just travel around. They took days off from work and traveled around, volunteer. I mean,
you can never underestimate mankind and the amount they're willing to give to someone when there's a time of need.
Right.
And that's huge. And it's something that we all believe in one way or the other, that ultimately you will do what's right, you will do what's good. And if you have a chance to help somebody in that situation, because that is a disaster. In Puerto Rico, Houston especially, when houses are flooded, people are stranded, there's people dying, there's animals dying, people going on their own volition in their own boats and their own capacity to help save lives is huge. And that gives you hope for the moral spirit.
And maybe the question is that when it's in question the value of someone's life, whether it's a family member or a total stranger, maybe that elevates any other preconceived notions about what a moral good is or what the moral compass is of a person. That if you're dealing with someone like our friend whose person was about ready to jump off the bridge, because a life was involved, we knew that we had to be she had to be ready to act, and that might define for all of us similarly.
And that takes a lot of guts to do, to pull over and try to stop somebody just out of instinct. Like you said, you would have maybe called somebody. You might have kept on going. I can't say for sure what I would have done. I probably would have pulled over had I realized what was going on. But with the way my mind goes sometimes, I'm not paying attention. If I see somebody standing on the side of a bridge, I think, oh, look, they're just looking at the water, not realizing they're actually looking at jumping.
Right.
Unless it's very clearly defined as they're on top of like the rail waiting to jump.
Yeah, well, and I think that's what this woman saw. She saw her actually trying to, stopping the car in the middle of the road, getting to the bridge rail, going up.
And it's stories like that to make you wonder, what would I do if I was in that situation?
Yeah.
What would I do?
Yeah.
I like to think that I would try to talk her off the ledge, but I also know how I am and might use my own tongue-in-cheek reverse psychology to talk her out of it, whether it's right or wrong. Go ahead, jump. What's it gonna hurt? Nobody cares about you if you're up here. See if that works. And with my luck, she'd probably jump.
Yeah. Oh, if you're gonna try to save me, screw
Next
it. I'm
thing
out
I
of
know,
here.
I'm jumping in after trying to save her. It's something that we all want to believe that we're going to do what's right. And we all want to armchair quarterback it after we hear those stories. This is what I like to think I would do.
So let's put you in this situation, Scott. You see the woman. Okay. And you see the woman about ready to jump off the bridge.
Okay.
And you stop the car and you go see her. And you find out it's that Susan Smith woman who drowned her 2 kids in the car from North Carolina a few years ago. Hey, if we're going to put some moral dilemmas in, let's put some moral dilemmas in this show.
It's...
How about this? First of all, does it change anything for...
Do I know who it is?
You recognize that it's the woman, or let's say that it's... let's say it was the Las Vegas shooter, that you recognized him, or you recognized the woman who killed her 2 kids when she drove the car into
I think you have to pull them out regardless and give them their justice. Jumping off a bridge because of something they committed like that is them taking the easy way out. They don't deserve the easy way in that case.
Okay, but you're not doing it because of the value of her life. You're doing it because you want her to face real justice.
That's the easy way out. If doing what you did or what they did, no, you're not going to take that chicken shit way out. If you can stop that and make them face the real justice and really suffer living, yeah, absolutely.
So you would still do everything the same way because the morals inside of you said life is... I
don't know if I do it the same way. I mean,
you might yell her, hey, get off that ledge, face justice, bitch.
You've heard me you bark at my dogs in the middle of the show, so it wouldn't be quite to that level, but I think you could use a more brute force just to pull them over. I'm not a small man, so I think it wouldn't take a lot for me to yank a woman or a man trying to jump off a bridge off the ledge and down onto the road.
When I was in college, I took a class of it was called. It was just an ethics class, and one of the examples they gave is they call it like normative ethics, which means that's what is perceived as a good in one society might be not perceived as a good in another society. And the example that they gave is that in Eskimo cultures, sometimes if you are elderly or sick, the clan would let you kind of go off into the tundra or into the nature to let nature take care of itself. Yeah. Whereas in their society, that was a norm, and you just did that. Yeah. Or in Roman days, when if you had an unhealthy child, they just threw it over the edge of the mountain or whatever and let them. In their society, that was normal. That was considered good. In today's American society, in most cases, not all, but in most cases, it would be frowned upon to say, "Hey, Grandpa, you're a little old. Why don't you just go out, into the wilderness and die?" Or, "Oh, your son has Down syndrome. Just throw him over the cliff."
Yeah, we can't do that in today's world, and I think we value life in a different level because of modern medicine and technology.
So in the example of the Eskimo culture, would that be a moral wrong universally, or is it only a moral wrong because our society doesn't value?
It's a difference in cultures.
Yeah.
It's very much a difference in cultures. You're talking about the Eskimos, we'll just say like 150, 200 years ago.
Yeah, I'm assuming that I'm assuming
today. It's not modern day Eskimos.
And again, I don't know. Maybe it is. I don't know.
We'll just go on the assumption it's the Eskimos of 100 years ago. If that's their culture, we're not a part of that culture. I might not like it, but I'm not going to stop them from doing what they perceive as the right thing to do. It's their world. I'm just dancing in it.
So in that situation, they might look at that as humane. They might look at that as that's the right thing to do, whereas our culture would not. But if I understand what you're saying is there's not a right or wrong perception of that moral dilemma.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it to me goes back to like how we treat our elderly or those that are terminally ill in our culture today. You have some people that just want them to be on comfort care, that just keep them out of pain and let them pass peacefully, and you have those that want their loved ones to be resuscitated no matter what. It does not matter. They want to give that person every chance they have to live. And
very few states have the right for euthanasia, legalized euthanasia. Absolutely. So even in a situation like that where we can conceptually think, obviously we don't want to have someone in pain if they don't need to.
Well, it goes back to
something has put a moral stop to say that we don't just value just euthanizing someone without.
It goes back to the Dr. Kevorkian case a few years ago. Dr. Kevorkian, the suicide doctor, he helped people that were terminally ill in their life. Their choice, because their loved ones wouldn't allow them to do that if they didn't know. Is that morally wrong?
Well, maybe there's a distinction between morally wrong and legally wrong.
Yeah. Clearly in this case, the guy was, from a legal standpoint, committing murder or assisting in murder or suicide, however you want to put it.
Right.
But if that patient is terminal and it's their choice to end their life that way, is it wrong to allow them to do that because you feel like that they have, they still have a chance to live, painfully and longer?
I personally feel that if someone wants to make that choice, I think they deserve to have that choice. Yeah. I find it interesting that in our society, the moral dilemmas of what's right and what is wrong is legislated in many cases by people who have an agenda, right? But we mix it as, well, that's illegal, so that's wrong, kind of like that Kevorkian case. Where is the line between legal moral code and just a universal moral code?
And you're seeing that more and more and more in today's world, especially like the legalization of marijuana. Some states have it, some states don't. Some people are very much against it. Doctors prove that it's harmful. Other doctors prove that it's beneficial. It all comes down to what you think. My dad was a was in law enforcement for 35 years. Spent the early half of his career working CIs and doing drug stuff. And to this day, if they legalized marijuana in Arizona, he still thinks it's dope. He still thinks it's the worst thing in the world. It's just the way he's been programmed. Like, don't even mention about bringing it up around him, because it's not only no but a hell no. And you can't change that, because that's how he sees the morality of it. 'Cause that's the way he was brought up. That's the culture it was in. By today's standards, it's a very much more lackadaisical issue. It's not as frowned upon as it used to be. So I don't
Interesting.
Think, I don't think doing it,
as times change, the moral compass
it shifts.
It
shifts, because if you smoked marijuana back in the 60s and 70s, you were a hippie, you were a doper, you were a dopehead, whatever, a stoner. By today's standards, it's like, man, it's whatever, cool. All right.
Yeah. Well, how many states have legalized it?
Exactly. I was like, man, it's legal now. It's not that big of a deal.
Right.
Like, whatever. Just I don't like the smell. Whatever. Don't do it around me. That's what it's coming down to.
Right.
It's that moral compass shifts.
So if you were just thinking about it, do you have any universal moral truths or moral codes that you think everyone who follows this moral code, it doesn't matter what society you're in, what decade you're in, this is a moral wrong that
I think
you can't break?
The only thing you can ever say for sure, on that line, is the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Treat people the way you want to be treated. That's the only real moral code that might be a blanket statement.
Right.
I can't sit here and say, well, hey man, this is how I would do it, because morally I think this is the right thing to do. But some kid over in France might have a completely different perspective on me. What he thinks is moral is not my problem, because I am not going to cross paths with him in all likelihood.
Right.
It's also, that's also dictated by the people you surround yourself in your worlds.
Right.
Your social influences help shape and form that.
One of the big things that's going on that I kind of think about is the idea of political loyalty. And how right now there's so many leaks out there of things that are supposed to be top secret in politics that get leaked out all the time.
Yeah.
I think that all of us would say that loyalty is something that we would want to strive for in ourselves, that we're loyal, that if someone tells us a secret, that we keep that secret to ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So we would think mentally that should be a moral code that no one would break, and yet we see it broken all the time. Yeah. Now that you tell something to someone and all of a sudden it comes out, and
that's the problem with social media today too. Is nothing's a secret, nothing's low key, nothing is if it's not true, it's not on social media, and that's the way the society looks at did you hear about this or that? Well, no, I didn't see it on Facebook. Oh, or I didn't read it on Twitter.
Right.
And it's where you get your information from. It's your social influencers.
Yeah, I've been watching the Vietnam War special that's Ken Burns just released on PBS. Mm-hmm. It's basically a chronicle of the Vietnam War.
On a side note, it always interests me to hear what you're watching.
Oh yeah,
because you watch things that are so completely different from me.
Oh, I will put the shout out there. Anyone who has not watched the PBS special, Ken Burns' The Vietnam War. It is an amazing chronology of the Vietnam War. But what I find even more fascinating is that the same issues that our society was dealing with 50 years ago,
it still happens today.
It's happening right now, maybe under different ideas or ideals, but it is a question of, are you loyal to the United States? Even if what the United States does you don't agree with, do you stay loyal or do you not?
The game might change, but the names might change.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well,
Absolutely.
One of the things that as you watch this, and 50 years later, when you're in the time, you probably can't. You're so close to the time, you can't really make an objective opinion about what's going on. But 50 years later, they can look at it as a historical reference, and they can say, okay, yeah, this leader did this, and this leader did this.
We might have messed up here. They might have messed up there. Yeah,
and it was amazing to me what things they got away with 50 years ago that would never happen. Like they authorized secretive, I'm losing my train of thought, but secretive missions in Vietnam without telling Congress, without telling the Senate, without telling the American people.
You know what that happens today?
That now would never happen.
You don't think that happens today?
Not to the same extent. I mean, things like, like one example was the president of the United States sending military men over to Vietnam without the approval of the Congress and without the approval of the Senate, and then not telling the American people that you sent these people over there. So it was like hush hush. The only people that knew were the military, and no one in the military talked about it. No one. And you think, how would you get away with it now that you could keep something like 50,000 military troops going over to Afghanistan
on that level
without anyone knowing?
On that level,
so things have changed so much then. But that the idea of moral loyalty and a moral compass, even with the NFL thing. I mean, is it right? Is it wrong? Everyone has an opinion about what's right or what's wrong. Even that can't be a universal truth that. Freedom of speech. Well, freedom of speech that damages the morale and the loyalty to our veterans, is that a right thing to be able to still have the freedom of speech?
Is it damaging the loyalty when you're just doing something that they fought for your right to do? And that's another case of morality. It's like, what your perceptions are not my realities,
right?
And that's something I try to live by every day. It's someone else's perception is not my reality. I know my realities, I know my perceptions, and I have to keep a close eye on those. And this is no different scenario.
Well, and I think that some people might be listening and saying, well, the Bible has a moral code. The 10 Commandments are the moral code. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. I won't go through all of them, but there is
the high notes on it. Yeah,
there is a moral code.
Mm-hmm.
There is a moral code that I think that people might say, well, religion provides that moral code.
Yeah. But my response to that is also, it goes back to the time. The Bible was written 2,000 years ago, and at that time, that moral code was perceived as law, essentially, like Christian law. But today's standards, I feel like it's almost interpretational. It's almost because there's so many different branches of Christianity, of what have you, that we might read the same sentence, but we might get two completely different takes out of that sentence. Love thy neighbor and do not commit adultery can mean two very different things to two different people.
Well,
and
or
like
thou shalt not kill unless you're killing Adolf Hitler, who's killed, murdered innocent people, then that's okay. Or, the Crusades, well, it's okay to kill the Muslims because they don't
believe what we believe
in, so killing them is not a moral wrong because we're fighting for thou shalt not kill. You know what I mean? So even that can be interpreted by us as people as, well, on the whole, I don't want to kill, but if I have to defend my family,
absolutely,
I'll kill.
It's different.
If I have to defend the world from tyranny and bad things,
we have a podcast for that.
We have a podcast for that. All right, Scott, you want to have a little fun?
Let's have a little fun.
Okay, so in the whole
wait. Our executive producer is asking, is this a list?
No, it's not a list.
Okay.
No, I've decided to do something a little different today. I decided to pull up some moral dilemmas. And see how you would respond and how I would respond.
Perfect.
Okay.
We will find out how different we really are or how similar we really are.
Right, I know. We'll see how bad we are. The people are probably going to say, wow, I can't listen to this show because of the moral deficiency of the two hosts.
Morally bankrupt.
Okay. Ready?
Yeah.
So number one, this is a pretty easy one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You're at your best friend's wedding just an hour before the ceremonies to start. Earlier that day, you came across definitive proof that your best friend's spouse-to-be is having an affair with the best man, and you catch them sneaking out of a room together looking disheveled. If you tell your friend about the affair, their day will be ruined, but if you don't want him to marry a cheater, what do you do?
Oh, dude, I'm blowing the top off that bitch.
Oh, me too.
Oh,
that one's an easy one. That's like a softball. That's easy. Yeah.
Like, I am hoping that pastor puts in the, does anyone object here? Because I will have video proof at that point.
So the moral dilemma in my case is, do you want to ruin the one day that they've been looking forward to their whole lives over
I'll tell you what,
destroying their relationship, but making sure that he doesn't marry someone he doesn't know fully?
Here's the way I see it. If you don't tell them, you let that marriage go through, at some point it's going to come out that you saw him or his ex-wife and your best friend walking out of a room disheveled, knowing they just bumped uglies, and he's gonna be pissed at you because you didn't stop it, you didn't tell it. So not only did you ruin the memories of that day, I mean, you're doing greater damage by not stopping it there. And let's be honest, there's still going to be the buffet, the beer, and everything else is still going to be there. It just won't be as happy for the groom and the families. But hey, man, someone's got to eat and drink.
I think it's a moral truth for me too that if you're going into a relationship, you have to be open and honest with the person you're going to be with. And if you're automatically assuming, going into a relationship where there's a definitely an ulterior truth. I don't know if I could let my friend do that. I just don't. I think, how about this? He might still marry her, but it would be important for him to know what's going on.
Yeah, like, hey, man, just so you know, this is what I saw happen. You want to marry her? Cool. Not my chair, not my problem. But you got to know she's cheating on you. I'm going to be in my seat in the stands waiting to see if this thing goes off. Good luck. Good
luck. Yeah, good talk.
Good talk.
So for me, the moral truth on that one is honesty is the best policy.
Absolutely. And the sooner the better.
Yeah. Because the other thing I have to keep in mind too is if my friend found out that I did know.
That's what I just said. Absolutely.
And I didn't say anything, bad. Okay, you ready? Yeah. Number 2. You are an EMT on the scene of a car crash that involves your spouse and the lover you did not know she had. They are both gravely injured. Your spouse's injury is the worst of them.
There's a lot of adultery in these questions.
You can tell it's unlikely she will pull through. Meanwhile, her lover has a neck wound that will prove fatal if pressure isn't applied soon. Whom do you choose to work on? Die, bitch, die! No.
So she's fatal.
Yeah. It doesn't look like you can tell that she's not going to pull through. So you can either put your energies into trying to save her or definitely be able to save the...
Is there a dog in the car we can save? Is there like an option C?
No, you can't. So it looks like the lover, you would be able to apply pressure to the neck wound.
Can he apply his own pressure?
No. I mean, I'm assuming he's unconscious.
Oh.
We're assuming a lot.
We're assuming a lot. It makes an ass out of you and me.
Right.
If she's...
So in this one, the moral code here is you are an EMT whose primary job focus is to save lives.
Hippocratic oath, yeah.
Right? So the moral code is that do you honor the oath that you took to save lives, or do you say, my oath is to say both of you can die as far as I'm concerned?
God, I hate the thought of that, but it's probably if I know that she's not going to make it because everything's like a steering wheel straight to the through the head, whatever else, I'd probably have to help the guy stop the bleeding.
Oh, you would, yeah. I think that would be a tough one to me because what would it say about me that I could have helped the one guy?
But you didn't.
You didn't. Now, that's not to say that you're not justified.
Oh,
and
yeah.
many people might even look at this and hearing this today and say, you were totally justified to let them both go.
I think, though, at the end of the day, your adrenaline in that scenario is running so strong that you're going to do what you think is right in the moment.
Yeah. You kick her once and then move on to the next.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think that the moral code to me on that one, the universal code is at the end of the day, you have to live with yourself and the decisions that you make. And so to me, I think that if my moral code was to save lives, even in the pain, I would have to make that decision to say my job is to save lives.
And I have to be able to look at myself in the mirror every day.
Yeah.
And that's something that I still make sure I do every day is that everything I do, I can look at myself in the mirror and say, all right, I'm doing what I think is right. I'm being the person I want to be as a result of my actions.
Noreen's ex-husband is a DPS. Well, I think he works in a different department, but he was a DPS officer for a long time. And he was telling me a story about one of his DPS coworkers who, during a routine traffic stop, got attacked by two people in the car. And they had a gun. He had a gun. There was shots fired. Both the police officer and the two suspects had been hit in the crossfire. It turned into more of a fierce battle, just a fighting battle. Mm-hmm. He did kill one of the perpetrators, but the other perpetrator who didn't die, the police officer did not shoot him and kill him. And the only thing I could think in my head is, how could you hold yourself in control enough to not after being in a battle for your life, not kill the other perpetrator. The same kind of thing. It's like, no, his oath was, I'm a police officer. I'm here to protect lives. I'm not here to take lives.
Exactly.
And so he didn't do it. And I always respected the officer who was injured. I mean, he was shot and in fear of his life, and he didn't do that. So
it's always, like I said, it's always easier to armchair quarterback things that have happened in the past. You can say, I would have done this or that. But at the end of the day, in the heat of the moment, nobody knows what they're going to do until they're in motion.
The next moral dilemma is one that I think everyone knows in some form or another, and this one will follow the line of is the immoral act that proves to be a moral outcome what makes one better. Okay, you're an eyewitness to a crime. A man has robbed a bank, but instead of keeping the money for himself, he donates it to a poor orphanage that can now afford to feed, clothe, and care for its children. You know who committed the crime. If you go to the authorities with the information, there's a good chance the money will be returned to the bank, leaving a lot of kids in need. So that now we're talking about the outcome being, is a good outcome from a bad deed okay?
Yeah. I think I have to turn them in, to be honest with you.
Well, yeah.
I understand it's doing a greater good, but I don't think I work with a lot of charities here locally, and I don't think any charity I work with would want that money taken that way.
Maybe. That's a good point. Interesting. That they would look at the moral good and say, hey man, I don't need it that badly.
Yeah, we will find another way.
I don't want the money to be stolen from something or someone.
Exactly.
Okay. I'm leaning the other way. I think I would be okay with saying, Robin Hood this thing all up, and I'm okay with that. Ultimately, because the banks have
FDIC
they have insurance, they have resources to be able to repair that.
Yeah,
the orphanage may not. Now, that being said,
I get that side point.
That being said, it would be tough for me, but I would be okay with not saying something, and because I think that the moral good that comes from the bad act is acceptable. Okay, you ready for one more? We'll do one more.
We'll do one more.
All right, let me find a good one here. Okay. This is just pure your moral code, what kind of man you are right now. Okay. You are involved in a 2-car crash on your way to work one morning in which you accidentally hit and killed a pedestrian. As you get out of the car, you are intercepted by a tearful woman who seems to think that she hit and killed the pedestrian. You're not sure why she thinks she hit the person, but she is convinced. There's only you, the woman, and the person you hit on the road. There are no witnesses. You know that whoever is deemed responsible will probably be sent to jail. What do you do?
Oh, fuck.
So this moral dilemma deals with the honesty. Am I honest and take responsibility for my actions, or do I avoid pain and suffering and protect myself?
I'm going to jail. I mean, bottom line is like you gotta. If only the other lady was the only other witness, maybe there's a reason she thinks that she hit that person, but if you know for a fact it was you got to do the right thing and clear her conscience and just, man, it sucks. It's a terrible thing to say, and I don't want you to think I'm just saying it because it's the right thing to say, but you got to do what's right.
No, I think you said it once before. You have to live with yourself at the end of the day, and the thought that an innocent person went to jail, for me, and for you, obviously, an innocent person would go to jail for something that I did. I would have to be honest about it. And I'm hoping that that's what happened in a real situation. But the reality is, how many innocent people are in jail right now for crimes they didn't commit? And you don't see a long line of people going up to the police department saying, I did it. I murdered the 4 people.
I agree. I agree.
So there's plenty more of these on the internet, and maybe sometime we'll go through that.
Part 2 of morality
I always thought it
clause.
would be good too if maybe we got your attorney friend to join us on the legal moral good versus the just the universal moral good, because how often do our lawmakers try to make laws that they think are creating a better society, and how they make those decisions. It might be kind of interesting to see from a legal perspective.
We actually have a few lawyers that listen to us now, so I will definitely reach out to see if we can figure something out. That'd be a good time.
Scott, I had a great time with this one.
Man, this is a little bit deeper than what we've been doing lately, so it's nice to get back to that level.
Yeah, well, and obviously, I'm hoping that this one, the people listen and they'll have their own opinions,
their own morality. Moments.
Feel free to put out there on Facebook, on Instagram, at Liquid Kernedge. We really appreciate your comments. We really appreciate everyone's input and opinions about the moral good.
Share.
Yeah.
Share.
Yep.
Facebook, Twitter,
Yeah.
Instagram. It's all at Liquid Kernedge. Please share. If you like the episode, if you don't like the episode, click the button. It takes one extra click. It helps. It makes Jason feel good about himself when he goes to bed at night. It helps me feel better about what I do during the day.
Hey, you're accomplishing a moral good by clicking share and sharing us with your
Morally,
friends.
it is the right thing to do.
Wow, I'm going to milk that for everything I can do.
Absolutely. We want to thank everybody for listening today. We want to thank our executive producer, Tom. Sorry you couldn't be on the show today, but we did run out of time. Hopefully next week we'll get you on. So with that being said, I'm Scott.
I'm Jason. And as always, if you never know quite what to say, just have yourself some Liquid Kernedge.